This is the tutorial guide for parents of preschool age children who are stuttering or showing signs and symptoms of disrupted speech. Parents oftentimes in a preschool age child who is stuttering, there's no clear-cut reason for why this is happening. Stuttering shows up in families who do not have a strong family history of stuttering. So unless your child has actually received a diagnosis of stuttering, you might be in this period where, do I do something? Do I do nothing? If I don't do anything, will I regret it and wish that I did something? There's so much conflicting information about what to do at this stage, which ultimately makes you more tense. And then it also generates an environment that may feel tense for your child. And the best skill that you can learn at this point in time is to create an accepting, caring, supportive environment for your child, to show that no matter how your child is talking, how it sounds, how it looks, that it is perfectly okay. Your job is to show that your child that communication, regardless of how it's coming out of the mouth, is a fun experience, and that their contributions are valuable. The help at this stage is for you, parents. My name is Laura Brzee. I'm an executive speech coach, speech language pathologist, and a person who stutters. I have walked the walk and I have talked the talk, and I have gone on to help many, many people at the highest levels gain confidence in their communication. My role is to help you and be a consultant with you to show you that there is help for you to navigate this challenging part of your journey in your child's speech development. When you can adopt a very neutral attitude about speech differences, it's going to help your child regardless of what happens in the future. Please reach out with any questions, add comments in the feed, start a discussion. Enjoy the content.
The first insight I'd like to offer is the consideration to use alternative vocabulary in place of the word stuttering. In the preschool age child, unless the child has a diagnosis, what we are really seeing is a motor speech difference. And these differences in the speech look like bumpy speech, or the speech is stuck for the moment, or it's a hard speech moment, or maybe even the sentence sounds a little bit choppy. And in this light, we are focusing more on the tension and the disruption in the speech flow versus a term that really is used for a diagnosis of stuttering or stammering. Stuttering and stammering tend to carry such negative undertones that I feel that it can be very dangerous to apply that significant of a term for a preschool age child who has not yet received any formal diagnosis, and yet they may be really going through just a phase of developmental disfluency. So until you know more, I advocate labeling what we see, like, ooh, that was a hard speech moment, for example. Another perspective to keep in mind is the overall development of your child. Aside from any other emotional, intellectual, or physical conditions that are impacting your child's development, if your child is considered typically developing, then it is very possible that what you are seeing in your child's speech is simply your child is developing speech in his or her own way on his or her own timetable. And it's easy for parents to lose perspective of this concept because preschool disfluency can be pretty random and pretty scary. It often shows up in families who do not have a history of stuttering. So a lot of parents are just really sort of caught off guard by how to respond to this type of struggle. So maintaining a neutral perspective that what you're seeing really could just be a phase of the child's speech development is a pretty crucial perspective to maintain. Until you know further through perhaps a diagnosis or more direct therapy, it really is prudent for parents to maintain a calm and resolved, pragmatic attitude so you really can cultivate being the best advocate and partner for your child. Speech is not a perfect skill. Just like any other motor physical behavior out there, it's not perfect. People don't walk perfectly. People don't talk perfectly. People don't perform at sports perfectly. But yet, we expect our children at the preschool age and even school age and even adults to speak perfectly. And it's very obvious whenever there's a slight disruption in one's speech. But let's get back to the basics here. Speech is a motor activity and it can be disrupted. And even speakers at the highest level do not have perfect speech. Now, it's very important to consider normal disfluencies. These are moments when there are minor disruptions, where maybe a person repeats a phrase, or maybe they had kind of like a false start, or maybe they tripped over their words, or maybe somebody is really nervous to speak, and then you're actually seeing some disfluencies that have nothing to do with stutter-like disfluency. As you move along the scale in speech disfluency, as these disruptions become longer and more intense and more severe, that's when we move into more of what is an atypical stuttering-like disfluency. It is very wise to consider the nature of the disfluency that you observe in your child. Rather than just saying, okay, my child is having this experience and I'm really uncomfortable with it and we need to do something about it now, this is an important time to start to look at it very pragmatically and say, okay, how is my child's speech on this particular day or in this situation? And then maybe there are patterns within days, maybe even seasons. It's so important to look at this in a structured way because we cannot expect that all disfluencies are stutter-like or motor differences. I advocate that you begin to get into touch with your own feelings about your child's speech differences. And the ultimate goal is for you to learn to adopt a neutral attitude about these disfluencies. Because this motor speech difference is really neither good nor bad. It just is. So when you can adopt a neutral perspective, you're going to be in a much more productive space to support your child on his or her difficult speech days. Now, I want to reassure you that any emotional feelings that you may be having about this experience are perfectly okay. Some days you may be feeling positive, like, I've got this and I'm great at being supportive and this is no big deal. But then other days you may feel helpless and scared. It is very expected that you would be struggling emotionally as you watch your child struggle to speak. Some suggestions that you can utilize during this time is begin to journal your own feelings about communication differences and speech differences. It may start to reveal some beliefs and attitudes that you were not aware of. Taking a look at your own attitude about speech differences and perhaps stuttering will help you do some self-inquiry about what scares you. What are you thinking about? Are you thinking too far into the future? Are you able to get back to the moment of, where your child is right now in his or her own developmental phase? Do you sometimes think that your days that you struggle also coincide with maybe some of the more difficult speech days that your child is having? When you start to really look at your reactions as well as what's going on with your child kind of day by day, you will start to see patterns. And again, adopting that neutral attitude is very crucial toward you being able to provide the best support that you can at this moment for your child. In these final few slides, I will discuss tips to lessen environmental pressure so your child can thrive in his or her communication. So at this stage, rather than you working directly with your child to shape or change his or her speech patterns, parents, this is designed for you to create a calm communication experience in the home so that your child can speak freely, no matter how his or her speech sounds or looks. The first tip is for parents to reflect on your own communication style. Important questions for you to consider. Number 1, are you a fast talker? Are you quick to finish someone's sentences? Are you aware of how frequently you might be interrupting people? Do you become frustrated in the company of slow talkers or when someone talks at length about a topic? And also, does it frustrate you when it takes somebody a while to make their point? It's very important to consider this because if any of these characteristics apply to you, you may be unknowingly transferring this communication pressure onto your child. And all of these characteristics convey a sense of hurriedness and lack of acknowledgement for what and how the speaker is delivering their message. You know how it feels to be pressured to talk, or perhaps when you are asked a question that you are not ready to answer, it can also make you feel under pressure. And nobody enjoys communication pressure. It's very, very challenging for young kids to deal with this type of pressure as well, especially in the early years of speech development. So pause time is the technique that I'm going to be sharing in the next slide. It's a great method to slow down the pace of the communication interaction. And when you slow down and your expectations are slowed down, your child will feel, again, a sense of calmness and ease so that he or she can slow down and really take as much time as the child needs to talk. The whole energetic exchange feels so much more calm and accepting when you introduce some more pauses within the communication interaction. Pause time is a very simple technique, yet you need practice for it to sound and feel natural in your own speech. Here you see 3 sentences with brackets intended to create phrases within the sentences. Pausing occasionally within a sentence and between sentences at the period will slow down your overall speech rate. Parent role modeling of reducing your rate of speech as well as demonstrating the natural pausing are 2 very effective tools to reduce communication pressure. Please consider practicing the pausing and phrasing techniques so that it sounds natural. I cannot emphasize this enough. In fact, you can listen to this technique in a variety of public speakers. such as preschool and kindergarten age teachers, spiritual and religious leaders, politicians, and motivational speakers. So for your own practice time, I suggest starting when you are reading aloud to your child. Reading to a young child is a great opportunity to enhance your delivery with phrasing, intonation, and emphatic voicing. Once you're comfortable reading aloud, you can then transfer this pacing technique to conversational speech with your child. This is my demonstration of reading the 3 sentences using pausing and phrasing, again, as if I were reading to a young child. A few days ago, I got a package in the mail. My jaw dropped when I opened it and found a genie's lamp inside. I rubbed the lamp and out came the genie. So that is the reading aloud. Now I will give 2 examples of phrasing and pausing within maybe more of a natural type of speech, conversational style speech. Please bring me your backpack so I can look inside. I think it's time to take out your lunchbox. In about 1 hour, I need some help taking out the trash. Can you help me with that, please? The next technique is called easy slides. This is another great skill parents can use to reduce the communication pressure in the environment. The backstory on easy slides is this. There's a group of American English sound pronunciations that require the tongue and lips to make a hard contact to ensure that the sound is produced properly. For example, k as in cage, j, judge, b, banjo, and p, poof. You can actually produce these same sounds with a soft contact or an easy slide, as I call it. It still sounds precise and correct, yet inserting this brief slide will allow you to produce the same sound without excessive tension. And essentially, it creates a softer contact. When you insert a few easy slides into your sentences, this relaxed articulation style has the tendency to carry over to other sounds in your speech. And it really can be very pleasant and soothing to listen to once you learn to do it naturally. Easy slides are another skill to practice and role model while reading aloud. You can demonstrate less tension in your own speech, and your child will also learn this style to reduce the tension perhaps in his or her own speech. So keep in mind that easy slides are meant to be barely noticeable. It is used for modeling purposes only, and the main intention is for parents to modify their own speech patterns just slightly to ease up any pressure that is existing in the communication exchange. I will read aloud this passage where I have highlighted the beginning sounds in yellow. And I'm going to implement the easy slide technique while reading aloud. That place is like a cage, he said. Then the genie said, you have 3 wishes, but judge wisely. I wish I could play the banjo, I said. Poof, and it was done. Look at these boys having fun and laughing, sharing jokes, sharing childhood. This is what childhood looks like at the preschool age. And parents and families, you can create this in your own communication environment at home to have fun and to be relaxed and to be accepting of each other and each other's differences. regardless of what is showing. Parents, you now have some tools to be able to create that supportive, caring environment to help your child thrive in his or her communication. You may need to go to the next steps and get professional consultation or therapy or evaluation. But in the meantime, from preschool age on, no matter what happens with your child's speech, you will always have the foundation that no matter how their speech looks and how they sound, that they are accepted.